What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Mount Mograph Summit 62, the complex summer bumper that is actually not complex at all and is super fun and easy to make. If you've never used Cinema 4D, this is your chance to try it out using Cinema 4D Lite or the regular Cinema 4D. We'll go over a really cool way to create this little animation, which looks fun, and it's very short little example here. And also we'll go ahead and composite the final effects that would normally be pretty render intensive inside After Effects instead of in Cinema 4D. So anyway, let's just go ahead and jump right into it and have some fun. Happy New Year too, by the way. So let's create a new project here. Go and create something like 1920 by 1080, pretty standard. I'm going to go ahead and name this composition Final Summer Bumper. It's important to name things, and we're going to go and right click into your project window here and go down to New Maxon Cinema 4D File, and we'll call this really whatever. I'm going to call it Summer Bumper 3. Because I made like 2 of them before this, so just to make things nice and clean. Let's go into our splines up here and just jump right into it. It's very easy to do, and it's really fun to also make, and I think you can learn something if you've never worked with Cinema 4D. So if you go and click into your splines here and hold down, you can go and select the text spline. We're going to use this, and let's go and set our line to the middle because we want to really know where our middle anchor point is, and change our text to something else. So I'm going to go with summer because that is what we're doing, a summer bumper for maybe like Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network or something. And let's go down to our font because Helvetica is very modern and not very fun or summery. And I'm going to actually change it to Impact, which I don't know, seems bold, seems like a big bold summer. So let's rock with that, and go ahead and click F5 on your keyboard, or go up and click this little button here to go up into all of our different perspective views. So let's focus over here into the right perspective view, which is going to give us the right profile of our object and our scene. And if we go up into our splines here, we're going to grab the Bezier spline. So let's go and just real simple draw a like a little S-curve, something like this. Maybe move it over. You want to keep it nice and smooth because we don't want to get too crazy for this video. So you almost have a little bit of I don't know, like a really bad ocean wave if you went to a bad ocean. So let's go and click back into our perspective view right up here, press F1 on your keyboard, and we're now going to see that our scene looks absolutely wonderful. This is really breathtaking. So let's go and kick it up a notch and also use our splines to make something cool. So if you go up here and click this little button, we're going to go and grab a sweep, and we're going to drop our spline in first and our text above our spline. So as you can see, we now have an actual 3D object from our 2 little splines we created. And if we go and click into our sweep settings, we're going to go into our object and toggle down our details and grab both vertice points of our rotation. And we're just going to go and move this until you have the word summer, or whatever you chose to type, aligned a little bit better, so it's actually facing up and not going all crazy and diagonal. And that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and also change our end rotation here to something a little bit more interesting, like 36, so we have a little bit of a twist here. So as you can see, we have a little bit of a funny bend here, which we'll get to in a second. But for right now, you can see that if I do a quick preview, Command R on your keyboard, we're starting to get, well, what will turn up to be the end of our video. That was hardly a complete sentence. I don't even know if it was a sentence, but let's go ahead and click into our render settings up here and set our width and height of our scene to 1920 by 1080. And we're going to go and also click our render settings over here and turn on ambient occlusion, which is just a right click and a selection, and that'll auto turn on. So now when we preview this, we're going to have actually shadows in our object when we add a light later. So if you click your sweep again, let's go ahead and add some caps. So if you click the caps, we're going to go down and set the start and end to a fillet cap or fillet cap. I'm still not sure how to say that. I should really learn one day. And we're going to turn our fillet type over to 1 step. So what that does is give us a little extrusion or a cap on the end of summer, and we now have this big, bold, blockbuster looking text, which looks pretty cool for not a lot of work at all. So let's go and add some colors to this just to get started and make our scene a little bit more interesting, because I don't want to look at gray anymore. So if we double click our material manager down here, we can click into our material and turn off your color and reflectance and turn on your luminance. So let's go and pick a maybe a red color, because that is pretty summery, and we're going to go and drop this onto our sweep object. And now when I do a preview, we have a bright red sweep of our summer text. So let's hold command and duplicate or Command or Control if you're on Windows, and drag out our matte 1, or a matte into matte 0.1, so that's our second material. And we're going to go and change our luminance here to, let's call it a bright orange. Once again, sticking with the nice MTV color summer theme. So if we select our orange material right here and go down to your selection, if a little trick is if you type in C, a capital C, and the number 1, we're gonna put the material onto our cap 1 of this object. So if I click off of that, you're going to see that the word summer is now highlighted on our wonderful sweep object, and a Command R is going to show that we're really starting to get our scene coming together. So let's go and tweak a couple things. I'm going to go into my display and change it to ground shading lines, just so I can actually see everything that's going on, because the luminance kind of blows out the object. So if I click the sweep object here, and go back into the object settings, let's go and change our scale of our object down to 0 on the far right side. So now we're going to have this wonderful little wavy line, and that looks pretty cool. And now when we change our end growth, you're going to see that we almost have this really fake out animation, or our start growth, sorry. We're going to kind of see this summer word grow, which is going to be the trick to this animation. So this looks nice for right now. And let's go ahead and add some keyframes. I'm going to make this timeline a bit longer. I'll make it 10 seconds just so we have extra room. And go forward on your timeline to, let's call it about, I don't know, we'll do 4.633 seconds, and just click your start growth and make sure it's set to 0%, and then scrub back in time to about maybe 3 frames. You never want to start exactly on frame 0, and turn your start growth up to 100, and click this little button here again to set another keyframe. So now when I play on the timeline, you're going to see that we have our summer text just growing really nice and smooth like this, and we're going to use a camera to spin around this object and make it look like we did some really complex animation. So this is looking pretty good for right now. I'm pretty happy with it. Let's go and use another couple little simple tricks to make our scene look even more complex. So if you go up into your objects here, your primitives, and grab a tube, we're going to go ahead and change our orientation to, let's call it, I think it's +Z is what we want, so it's facing towards us. And turn your outer radius up a ton, and then also your inner radius, so it's almost framing the word summer. And let's turn our rotation segments up, because we want it to be a smooth circle with no crazy straight lines on it. And this looks nice. And we're going to go and hold Command and drag out another new material. Click into our color here and change our color to, I don't know, let's go with something like a bright neon purple. Maybe a little bit pastel, because that's always for summer, and we'll drop this material onto our tube. So now when I do a little preview, you're going to see it's starting to look like a very colorful and fun little animation, and we're still going to do a lot more with it. So if you click your tube object and go over to your slice, let's check this box. So what a slice does is it changes the degree of your object here, at least for the tube. So you can almost make like a fake little draw on like you'd do with a trim path inside After Effects. So let's set our 2 to 360% and click your sweep object, and you're going to see we have this little blue dot here on our timeline that indicates a keyframe. So go forward to a little bit after it, and we're going to go and click our tube object and set a keyframe by just clicking this little circle here to 360 degrees, and we'll go back in time a little bit and set the degrees down to 0, and also set a keyframe. So now as this object this scene plays, we're going to get a nice little draw on effect of our wonderful little tube. So if you click your tube and go over to object, we're going to also turn on the fillet around it, so we get a nice rounded corners, and maybe turn your radius down a bit to about 2. So now when I preview this, we just have a nice little edge there that you totally don't see. But if we duplicate our tube by just holding Command also in our object manager and dragging up, we're going to add another material to it. So I will hold Command and drag out our material down here, double click, and what we're going to do with this one is maybe add a nice pink color. And drop this color onto our tube 0.1, which I guess I'll name smaller tube. And then what we can do is just scale this down a little bit so we almost get a, I don't know, like a little outline of our object with 2 cool circles. And you're going to see the ambient occlusion is starting to kind of harden those edges when you have objects close to each other. So now for the next trick is we're going to grab the tube object by right-clicking, go to Cinema 4D tags, and select the option Align to Spline here. And once with Align to Spline is put onto your object, we're going to grab our spline from our sweep and put it onto our spline path. So you're not going to notice too much, it just jumped a little bit here, but if you select this option tangential, it's going to tilt. So what this means is that as I change the position, it's actually going to go along that little tube path that we made, which is really helpful for a lot of different kinds of animation. And for us, it's going to be a cool way to get it always centered up with our summer text as it grows. So let's set a keyframe here. Actually, you don't have to set a keyframe. We're going to duplicate this object, or this little tag here, by holding Command and drop it onto our smaller tube, so the smaller tube has the same settings. So if you select the smaller tube and select the Align to Spline path, we're going to change our position and just drag it back a little bit. So now we're starting to get this like wonderful, perfect stagger on our spline without having to move it around the scene. And we can go ahead and just duplicate this object, the smaller tube, by holding Command and dragging up in your Material Manager, Object Manager, and add another color to this tube, and also go into your Align to Spline thing and drag it back on the position a little bit. So I might go about there, looks pretty good, and maybe for this one I'll make it really big, and you can start like messing around with the object sizes of your radius. So if I turn this, maybe I'll make it like really big and obnoxious, so like this, and I'll hold Command and drag out another material, and let's make this one, let's call it kind of like a baby blue or a teal or something, and we'll drag that onto our super big tube, which I'll call big tube. And now when I preview this, we're going to see we have all these wonderful circles going around our animation. So remember that we set some keyframes, and those were for this draw on effect. So this looks pretty cool, but they're all going the same direction. So we could go into our slice and change those keyframes, or another little quick tip is if you grab the object and click over here into your anchor point, or your axis modification tool, you can press R on your keyboard for the rotation tool or this, and actually just hold shift and drag it, I believe, if I can do this properly. Well, this did not work as expected, so let's go ahead and just rotate this object a bit. We'll just rotate it so it's not all even. I was going to do something else, but we'll just roll with this. So I'm going to make these so they're at least not even, so that looks pretty cool. So I like that, that's looking nice. Let's go ahead and actually select all these objects, hold Command and drag out, and we're going to get another duplication of a whole group, and we can actually hold Shift and drag, grab all of these Align to Spline expressions and change our position. So we're going to drag these back a little bit, so closer to the beginning of this spline, and also press T and scale these down so they're a bit smaller and more around that spline. So from here, we're going to grab each of the duplicated objects we just did, and on the Align to Spline tag, just drag these forward or backward just to get a couple different spots on this little tube animation we're making. So I might drag this one way back and scale that down, and click the big tube and maybe scale this one up a bit and put it there, and that looks fine. So now when I do a preview, you're going to see we're starting to get a very cool little scene. So one of the things is we did set this animation so all of the keyframes for this slicing effect come on at the same time, which is just no good. So let's try to time this out. So if you go over to the side here, and we're going to scrub back in time till you see where the animation is taking place. So right about here, we're going to see that it's passing both our pink little spline we moved back and our purple one. So if you click the tube point 1, I didn't name it very well, that is purple, we're going to see that on this timeline we have our keyframe positions, and if we grab them with our selection tool by just clicking on the timeline and dragging over, they're going to highlight showing they're selected, and we can actually just drag these backwards to line it up a little bit better. And you can also grab these little handles here on the side and smush it so it's a shorter duration. So now we have a nice quick little animation happening. So I'll do the same for the smaller tube here. So just click and drag these keyframes and drag them back so they really start early, and maybe squash this down so they happen really, really quick by grabbing the little end handle here. And I gotta get these a little bit better. I grabbed way too many keyframes. Here we go. So I'll just squash this down so it's real fast, and let's see how this is looking. So we have it all start to draw on, which is cool. Go forward in time, and as you can see, it's hitting our big teal one we duplicated right up here. So let's grab these keyframes and just drag them back so it lines up a little bit with our animation, and squash it down or stretch it out like this if you'd like to change the timing. So this looks nice, and then we'll just go forward in time and try to just stagger these couple first ones we did just real simple. These don't have to be too different. I kind of like them all coming on together. So I'll drag this one back, I'll grab this one and maybe select these and just move them over, and let's see how this is looking. So just with really just duplicating an object, we have a pretty complex looking scene coming together. So now for the cool trick, and we really don't have to worry about these floating objects because it'll work perfectly with our scene. So I just saved the object, so it's going to save over to our After Effects composition we're working in. And if you go ahead and grab the camera tool, click and hold, and grab the target camera, what it's going to do is create a camera and also add the target tag to it, which will click into the camera, and also give you a camera target, which is this null object right here. So if you click the camera target, let's rename this just to target in all caps so we can find it easy. And if you go into your display, let's change this to a diamond, and we'll scale it up just so it's really visible in the scene instead of just a dot that's hard to see. So what we're going to want to do is on the target little null object, right click and go to Cinema 4D tags, align to spline, and we're going to once again drop our spline from our sweep into our spline path there. So it's going to snap to the spline, hopefully, and now when I play the animation, you're going to see that the null corresponds directly to where the summer text is. But if I grab the align to spline path on our target object and I change the position, the camera's going to move, and this is because the null object, which is right here, I'll actually select it, is going to change. And so as it moves, it's going to mean the camera is always facing this null object, which is a cool way to always be facing an object. I said that a lot, but let's go back in time here, and we'll scrub our position down to 100% and set a keyframe. And then as our animation plays, let's just go ahead to right when the sweep ends, right about here, and we'll turn our position down to 0. And set a keyframe. So now that we have that all set up, we're going to have a nice little pan over our scene as this whole animation is happening. But in order to make this cool, we're going to add keyframes to our camera object. So let's save this project, Command S, and we're going to go back to the very start of this animation. So to navigate around your scene, you use the number 3 on your keyboard to do the moving tool, 2 to zoom in, and 1 to pan left or right. But in our case, it's facing the target object. So if I zoom in here, just frame it up however you want. You want it to look really cool, and it doesn't matter. It's going to auto-interpolate between all these positions. So as this object is coming in, I want to make sure that I am really, finding cool angles if I can. So as I scrub forward in time, I'm going to zoom out, and you're always going to be facing the null object. So just use that to always find the summer text. And if you click the right arrow on your mouse, or the right mouse button, and have 3 held, you can do this thing called a tilt. So we're going to tilt, rotate, and set another keyframe. So now we're spinning our camera. So with just a couple clicks of this animation, we're already starting to get this like super complex looking animation, and we're going to keep going forward in time. You might come off the summer for a little bit. Just zoom out here and toggle around until you find the summer text. Pretty easy. Maybe I'll go upside down or sideways, looks kind of cool. And we'll set another keyframe. So now if we scrub back in time, we're going to see that it's actually tracing the object pretty well for us and starting to look cool. So if you click this arrow over here, you can go to the next keyframe. And what I'm going to do with this one is once again use that tilt by using the right arrow on my mouse and set a keyframe again. So now we have even more crazy movement. So all these spins is really exciting, and it's good for like cartoon identities or commercials or something. And I'll go forward in time, find the summer text again, maybe zoom out a little bit, and maybe we'll do one more rotation and give it a nice little tilt like this, and then scrub forward in time, and we're just going to do a real simple tilt over to the other side like this. I don't know, it's really just comes down to whatever you think looks good. And let's see how this looks. So I'll just go back in time to the very beginning and play this animation, and in no time at all we have this really like complex and crazy looking summer identity, and there's some spots we'll smooth out here. Like this one didn't work out so good for us. So maybe zoom out and reposition that, or go back in time and also change one of the points. So maybe we want to be over here for that, and just set a keyframe. It's pretty easy, and you can be pretty loose with how you animate it, and it normally works out pretty fun. So maybe I want to transition like that. If I don't, I can just go back in time and find when it starts to get all nuts in there, and just try to fix it. So maybe zoom out a ton and tilt like this, and we'll just see what happens. We don't have to be perfect with this. So some weird stuff in there, but we're just going to roll with it. So make sure to save this project, and you're going to see we have tons of hoops and all kinds of other goodies swinging around the scene. And if we duplicate the sweep object holding command in our object manager, drag it out, let's go ahead and delete our text object and go up into our splines and grab the rectangle spline and drop this into the position A of our sweep. And you're going to see, if I actually click out of this camera tool, this little white symbol right up here, we're going to see that we have another object kind of overshadowing our summer text. So let's grab the sweep object we just duplicated and drag it up, and you're going to see we have a spline similar, or a spline and a sweep similar to our text, but with the rectangle. So let's make this a little bit smaller here. I'm going to set it to 15 and 15, so it's nice and slim. Maybe go to 25 and 25, whatever you want. And just delete this first orange one. We don't want the cap at the end. And I'll drag a different color onto there, like pink. And now we have a pink spline. So if we grab our sweep here, we can scale this up and just distort it. We don't have to worry about it. And if I rotate it and maybe try to just position this in a cool way in the scene, you're gonna see that we start to get those like little line squiggle things I had at the beginning. And it was really just another duplicated object. That's kind of the trick to make some really crazy looking stuff, is just duplicate things over and over and over until you wind up with something you like. So just like this, I'm going to check this on my final camera position. It doesn't look that good yet, so let's see where we end. Actually, I do kind of like that. I might drag it up a little bit more out of frame like that, so it's kind of threading the needle, and we'll drag a different color onto it. I'm going to go with a new color, so I'll hold command, drag out on new material, and let's make this into something we haven't used, maybe like a yellow. And I'll drop this little yellow color onto that spline there, or sweep. And now when I preview it, we're going to have a nice line sweeping through the scene, just making it look like we spent so much more time on it than we actually did. So if I grab the sweep object, we're still going to have those keyframes on the growth. So let's see if those make sense. So right now I do not like how all that animation is coming in. Seems to get in the way of what we're trying to focus on, which is the summer. So let's go to closer to where we're ending this to start bringing this in. So if we grab our two keyframes here and just drag these forward in our timeline and use the handles to squish this down quite a bit and drag it backwards, I want to make this really snappy. So as soon as this is starting to hit, it's just going to snap through the scene like that. So let's check that out. We have a nice draw on effect, and what we're going to do is just do one other quick one and then get back into After Effects and composite it and make it look cool. So if you grab sweep.1 and hold command and drag it out one more time to duplicate it, we're going to use the same trick to make another spline in this scene. So use your rotate tool and your move tool, pretty basic. We're just going to go and move this around till it's at an interesting angle. You could go ahead and scale this up and position it somewhere. I don't know, maybe like here. Maybe we want that cool little slash through the scene. And maybe I'll make one more color, so hold command, and let's switch this yellow color to, I don't think we've used a blue, so maybe a nice blue. And drop the blue material onto our sweep.2, and let's see how those keyframes are lining up with our scene. That doesn't look bad. It looks kind of cool. So we've created this really complex animation using some really basic techniques, and just, I mean, it looks like we spent so much time planning this out, and at least I think so. And we have this nice little, I don't know, bumper or something for a kids show. So let's go ahead and make sure you save this. That's the important part. And jump back into After Effects here. And we're going to see that our summer bumper is in our project manager. So if you drag your summer bumper C4D file into your timeline, it's going to use Cineware by Maxon if you have Creative Cloud. And if you click into your timeline, you're going to see that our Cinema 4D scene is actually here. So one of the things we're going to want to do is change our renderer here. Instead of to software, change it to standard final. And this is where it's a little bit slower than normal Cinema 4D to use Cinema 4D Lite, because you can't render stuff out, so it has to render in After Effects, which can get kind of annoying. I'm going to save this project just as something for now. But you're going to see that our scene is here. So if you go and create a new solid with Command Y on your keyboard, let's go with a green. I actually have that set already, a lime green. And we're going to drop this solid behind our scene, and we have this really bright looking bumper. So if I scrub forward in time a little bit, find an interesting frame, it might be somewhere around the end here. I'll show you what you can do to composite the scene in After Effects and make it look like we added lights and reflectance and all kinds of stuff that normally is pretty render intensive in Cinema 4D. So if we go into our effects and presets, we're going to grab an effect called Glow under Stylize and just drop this onto our Cinema 4D object. And you're going to see that it lights right up. And if you go down and actually minimize this, maybe you want to change your threshold a little bit, find what you like. I'm going to turn my threshold down to about 46, it looks like, for my color palette, and maybe change the glow radius down as well to like 7. Turn it up till you find something you like, and that looks pretty cool to me, really bright and like kid-friendly. And if we go into our effects and presets and type in plastic, we're going to use the CC plastic effect and drop that on there, and we'll just keep the default settings. But it's going to add this nice like reflectance to our object once it's done previewing. So in just a second, you're going to see that we now have almost this bubblegum looking effect on our animation. And when you scrub through this timeline, it starts to make it look like we've spent a lot more time building these materials in Cinema 4D. So it's kind of nice to use these two programs together just in a way to save time. And when you render this out, it might take a little bit longer if you're not coming right out of Cinema 4D with the render and you're using Cinema 4D Lite. But it's going to come out with the same effect, and I think it looks pretty cool. So anyway, I hope you had fun with this video. Sorry for all the stutters. I was on vacation for like 2 weeks and just celebrating the new year with some family. So anyway, hope you had fun with this video. Leave a like or comment if you would like to see anything else with Cinema 4D Lite. Let me know and I'll keep them coming. I just thought I'd try something different for this video. But anyway, rock on, and thanks for checking out Mount Mograph. Yeah, talk to you later. See ya.